Now that we've created our arrangement track and we've labeled our instrument tracks on the left-hand column, the fun part really begins as we start to build our song. So I'm going to start by adding some drum loops to my A section. So if I go to the upper right hand corner of my screen, this middle button is my loop browser. So if I click on the loop browser, you can see that I have this window that slides open. I'm first going to select instrument and I'm going to click all drums. And here I have a list of all the drum loops available in my loop library. Notice in this column you have beats. That's how many beats long each of these loops are. And they can range from as little as 2 or 4 beats to as many as 32 or even 64. I've already spent some time browsing some of the drum loops and identified some that I like. So by clicking on a loop in my loop browser, I can hear the loop. If I decide that I want to use it, I simply click on the name of the loop, drag it to my workspace, and drop it in my drum track. You can see that the region appears here with the drum loop inside, and if I press my space bar, I can hear the drum loop that I've added. Now, because this drum loop is only 16 counts long, it doesn't quite fill up the entire A section. But GarageBand makes it very easy for me to copy and paste these regions. If you look at your computer keyboard, to either side of the space bar, you'll find a key that's labeled Option. If I hold down the Option key and then take my cursor over this region, then click and drag this region, then drop it where I want it, you can see that GarageBand automatically makes a copy of the region and pastes it where I drop it. So now I have a complete 8 measures of a drum track for my A section. Next, I'm going to add a bass. So I'm going to come over here and click on the X to reset my instruments. And now I'm going to select bass. Again, I've already spent some time listening and browsing some of the bass loops to identify some of the ones that I like. Now, if I want to hear what the bass loop is going to sound like with the drums, a really handy feature of GarageBand is something called the cycle button, and that appears right here. If I click on the cycle, you can see that this bar changes to gold in my timeline. When I hit my space bar now, it'll play this section of music, and when it reaches the end of the gold bar, it'll automatically loop or cycle back to the beginning. While this is playing, I can click on the bass loops in my loop browser. Remember, you can adjust the volumes in your tracks and even the volume down here in your loop browser. Once I find one that I like in my bass, I click and drag and drop over here. Again, I want to finish up the entire A section, so if I hold down the Option key, click on the region, drag while I'm still holding that Option key and dropping, now I filled in the entire A section for my drums and my bass. And again, I can adjust the track volumes so I get a good balance between the sounds. Great. So now I'm going to go to my guitar track. I'm going to click the X. I'm going to select guitars. And again, I've already have a few marked that I liked. But just to check them out, I can cycle and listen to my guitar loop. So if I decide I want to use that one, again, I click and drag. I use my Option click, drag and drop to copy that region. And again, adjust my track volumes. Finally, I'm going to get my synthesizer or keyboard loop. If I come over here, I'm going to choose Synths. And I'm going to audition some of these synth sounds. So if I decide I like this one, I simply click and drag. So let's maybe try one that I've So now I've completed my first A section. Now with the repetition in music, copy and paste is a really easy way for me to complete these other A sections. If I take my cursor and I click, then drag across all these regions, you can see that it selects all of the regions. Once I have all the regions selected, if I hold my Option key down, click on one of the highlighted regions, drag and drop, you can see that GarageBand automatically copies and pastes all the regions. If I do this again, click, drag and drop, now I have all of my A sections completed. The next step is to work on my B section. In the B section, all of my drum, bass, guitar, and synthesizer loops should be different than the A sections. If I want to use my cycle bar, I can click on the gold bar over here and drag it down to my B section so that I can cycle the B section as I'm listening to different loops. Once you have your B section completed, you're almost finished with your project.